Hey everyone, in today's video we are going to talk about all the bad things, not all, but some of the top things that people are worried about when they first get into Bitcoin. And they're worried, this might happen, that might happen. How do I keep from getting scammed out of my Bitcoin or my Bitcoin hacked, or something bad happens to me or my Bitcoin? So I'm going to make an effort in this video to address the top 6 things that are most likely to happen to somebody that are bad things that could happen. As always, this content is off the top of my head, and I'm just, I'm not spending a ton of time researching this. I've just spent, a whole lot of hours listening to podcasts, reading books, talking to people, etc. So the way I want to do this format, this is going to be a bit of a longer one. The way I want to do the format is starting with the highest probability items and working my way down to the lowest probability items. And in each case, addressing, what you can do to keep that bad thing from happening. Okay, so let's presume you and I have an amazing conversation about Bitcoin. We don't see each other for a year. Bitcoin's, tripled, quadrupled by, fall of next year. And you and I meet each other again, fall of next year, and there's a sad look on your face. And my job is to guess what bad thing happened to you that put a sad look on your face when Bitcoin's up triple, quadruple, or whatever it's doing. So that's a good sort of mental paradigm for thinking about what is the likelihood. So if you came to me fall of next year and I said, hey, whatever happened to the Bitcoin we talked about? And, you were all excited back in mid 2024. And you said, oh, Joel, it's just, bad things happened. It's a sad, sad story. And then if you were to make me try to guess what that sad, sad story was, I'll tell you what I think would be the series of events. Okay, so if I had to guess, the highest likelihood, most probable thing that happened is you didn't actually buy the Bitcoin you thought you were going to buy, or you were planning to buy it, but you never bought it. You forgot to buy it. You moved the money to Coinbase, but you never actually bought Bitcoin with the money you used to move to Coinbase. So the number one thing that makes someone sad as it relates to Bitcoin, that is something bad that could happen to them or their Bitcoin, is that they never bought it in the first place. That's like by far the number one, most likely bad thing that could possibly happen to you or your Bitcoin is you just didn't buy any, or you didn't buy enough. That's like number one. So what's the solution to number one? Well, buy more Bitcoin. It's not hard. Don't try to time the market. Don't buy anything other than Bitcoin in cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin BTC, like the real original Bitcoin. That's the only thing worth owning. So number one bad thing that could happen to you or your Bitcoin is you didn't buy it in the first place, or you didn't buy enough of it back when you could, this year at below $65,000 coin, since Bitcoin right now is about $64,000 per coin. You can still buy it for less than $65,000 coin. So let's assume you come to me next year and I say, and you're sad, and I'm like, what, let me see if I can guess what happened. Number one, most likely thing is you didn't actually buy the Bitcoin, or you didn't buy enough of it. And you say, nope, that's something bad happened, but that's not it. Then I would say, okay, second most likely thing that happened is you bought the Bitcoin, but then you sold it. You sold it because you had to pay a medical bill and you didn't think about potentially financing it with the hospital, or you sold it because you planned to buy it back later and then forgot, or you sold it. There's like a million reasons you could have sold it. Okay, so that's the number two most likely bad thing that happened. If you didn't not buy it or not buy enough of it, the most likely thing that happened to you is that you sold it, and you're sad you sold it because it's now much higher. So what's the solution to number two? Don't sell it. Try, at all reasonable levels to not sell the Bitcoin that you have. That's number two. Okay, so let's assume I meet you fall of next year and you're like, nope, the problem was not that I didn't buy enough or didn't buy it at all, and the problem was not that I sold it. Then number three would be, I would say, please don't tell me you tried to trade it. Like you tried to, sell the tops and buy the bottoms, and nobody can successfully trade anything except very, very, very sophisticated people on Wall Street that do it full time with a bunch of data and systems we don't have. So number three things that happened would be you tried to trade it somehow, and related to that is you got scammed out of it, but I'll get to that because most anything that has to do with Bitcoin trading is a scam. So you tried to trade it. Well, the answer there is don't try to trade it. Do not, once you buy Bitcoin, don't sell it with the intent of buying it back later. Don't buy it with the intent of selling it at the top and buying it at the bottom. Nobody can time the market. You can't, I can't, nobody can. So don't even try. It's not worth it. Not going to happen. So, don't trade. Number 3, don't try to trade the market. Number 4 thing, if you didn't not buy Bitcoin, and you didn't sell it, and you didn't lose it by trying to trade it, or massively underperform, I guess sort of a bonus on trading it would be you tried to buy other cryptocurrencies. You tried to buy Dogecoin, Shiba Inu. You diversified into a bunch of, effectively penny stocks of crypto, and they all turned out worthless, and you wish you had gotten into Bitcoin. That's sort of similar to trading, but a lot of people who are trading are trying to trade meme tokens and ridiculous dumb stuff. So short take is don't do that. Don't try to trade it. Don't buy anything in cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin BTC. Bitcoin is the original, real Bitcoin is Bitcoin B. The ticker symbol is BTC, which is B as in Bitcoin, and ITCOIN. It's just the first 3 consonants. So don't do that. Okay. Number 4, I'm going to call it number 4 because I'm going to sort of group trading it and buying meme coins and cryptos. I'm going to sort of lump that in the stupid stuff you do in crypto. All right, so number 4, you got scammed out of it. Okay, now and remember we're going in likelihood here. So by far the most likely, each likelihood of each time we move to a new one is radically lower than the likelihood of the one before it. So by far the most likely is you didn't buy it at all in the first place, or you didn't buy enough. Much less likely, but still the most likely next is you sold it. Much less likely than that, but still most likely, by comparison, would be you lost it, or you underperformed trading it, or buying meme tokens, or Shiba Inu and Dogecoin and junk and all that sort of stuff. So much less likely than all that, but still probably next most likely on the list is you got scammed out of it. So scammers are extremely sophisticated. They're calling people all the time, claiming that their bank accounts have been compromised. They typically start by telling you they've seen some charges on your account that look fraudulent, and can you please confirm, did you book flight tickets to New Orleans or whatever to, San Francisco? You say no. They say, oh, I was afraid of that. Your account's been compromised. I'm going to need you to give me your username and password and your 2-factor authentication key so I can, secure your account. Of course, all they're going to do is log into your account and steal all your Bitcoin. So this is a problem with bank accounts as well as cryptocurrency. It's easier for scammers to do in cryptocurrency because people are less sophisticated, so they get freaked out easier. So typically, if somebody calls you and says your bank account's been compromised, and I get these calls quite a bit, people call and they pretend to be Wells Fargo, or they pretend to be, some big bank, and then they, the caller ID matches, they've got it all worked out. They have a whole story about my account's been compromised, and they need to authenticate the account to make sure I'm the real me, to keep the hackers from draining my funds, and it becomes clear in the course of the conversation that they are scammers and that they're trying to get my 2-factor authentication. And typically they're trying to get you talking fast enough that when you get the text message from, whatever bank it is, from Bank of America saying, do not share this code with anyone, they're telling you, okay, good, now you're going to get a code, try to read it to be quick, because they need that code. If they got your password, they need that code to log in to whatever your bank account or to Coinbase or whatever, and don't give it to them. So simple solution on scammers is be always vigilant and always wary. Assume that if anybody texts you or calls you out of the blue, that it's a scam. Assume that anybody that claims to be with technical support for one of these companies is a scam. Assume that anybody who calls you claiming that there's been fraudulent transactions and that they need to verify the account, assume it's a scam. That doesn't mean it's always a scam. It's just usually a scam. So do not give your password to anyone. Do not log into a website that is not the official real website or the official real mobile app for wherever it is. So, for example, if it's Coinbase, log into the mobile app on your iPhone yourself. If somebody texts you a link and says, I need you to log into Coinbase at this link, and it's coinbase.zk.yz, don't log in on that link. That link is a pass-through link where they're going to harvest your username and your password, and then they're going to use that username and password and 2-factor authentication to log into Coinbase. Don't do that. So anyway, the short take is don't log into your bank accounts or your cryptocurrency accounts with anything other than the real official website. Don't click on links. Don't open attachments. Just go through the official real route, and that will keep you from getting scammed. And then again, just assume that if somebody's reaching out to you, assume it's a scam and make them prove it's not a scam instead of the reverse. And usually they just try to sweet talk you to give up your authentication information. 1 second. Okay, so much, again, we're going in descending order of likelihood here. So you're much more likely to not buy Bitcoin or to have sold it or have traded it yourself or have bought meme tokens like Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, whatever, and lost money that way. Again, scamming is much less likely than all of those, but it's still way more likely than the next one, which is getting hacked. Getting hacked is, instead of someone sweet talking you into letting them into your account or you transferring the funds from your account to the scammer, hackers are actually accessing your account themselves through some sort of a hack. Typically, they're doing this by getting access to your password, because people use passwords for more than one website, and you should not use that. You should not do that. You should use a password manager like the one that's built into the iPhone, or there's a bunch of good, reputable password managers, but you should have a system where everything that involves a password uses a different password. Because if, let's say, Coinbase or something like that, if your account gets compromised by a hacker, typically the way they'll do it is they'll take a data leak. There was just a massive data leak of like 2.9 billion records a week or two back. Not from like Coinbase, but it was from a big data aggregator site. But anyway, hackers got a hold of it, and they've got, a gazillion records. So these compromises are happening everywhere. So somebody hacks Men's Warehouse, and you had an account at Men's Warehouse, and you use the same password at Men's Warehouse that you're using at Coinbase. You should not do that. Do not do that. So here's what they'll do. They will use the password that they got from some other hack, and they will go try that same username and password, your email address and your password that they got from a data leak or a compromise. They will go try that at every single bank account and every single cryptocurrency company to try to see if they can find any account where, they can match it. And if they can match it and you have two-factor authentication turned on, which is, you should, in the modern age, you should have two-factor authentication, then they will probably try to call you to get you to give up your two-factor authentication code, and just don't give anybody that code that they text message to you when you try to log into a bank account or to Coinbase or something like that. Don't ever give that to anyone, not over the phone, not by text message, not by WhatsApp, not by Signal. Just don't give anybody that code. That code is intended to be entered in the Coinbase mobile app or the Bank of America mobile app. Like, that code goes one place, which is the real legit place when you yourself are trying to sign in. Don't give that code to anybody. And without that code, they can't get into the account. So anyway, the best way to protect yourself is for bank accounts and cryptocurrency stuff like Coinbase is don't use the same password for those services that you're using for anything else. Just don't, because if that password gets compromised somewhere else, hackers will find a way to use that same password for Coinbase. And again, if you've got two-factor authentication, they'll still get stuck at that. But anyway, related to scamming and hacking, for both of those things, that is why I like the Bitkey device, Bitkey, the Bitkey.world, WORLD, the Bitkey.world device, the hardware wallet I've talked a lot about on here. The reason I like that is it's effectively, scammer proof and hacker proof. Like, even if somebody gets access to your Coinbase account, well, guess what? You've got a relatively small amount of your Bitcoin there, and most of it's on this hardware device. And not that you can't get scammed with a Bitkey, but if you're scammed with a Bitkey, you're literally hitting, I want to send my Bitcoin, here's my fingerprint, yes, I want to send it, and then you're sending it to a scammer. If you're doing that, like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Like, if you voluntarily send your Bitcoin to a scammer, well, there's no way around that. Like, no device in the world is going to keep you from moving your Bitcoin where you want to move it. And if they can sweet talk you into, doing that, they'll do that. But the vast majority of people do not get scammed when they're using something like a Bitkey, because it's just so much more obvious that you're moving Bitcoin, as opposed to a Coinbase account or something like that, that's the best place to buy Bitcoin anyway. But it's much easier for an attacker or a hacker or a scammer to sweet talk you into, quote, authenticating your account. And the kind of things you would have to do to that, for a lot of people, they don't realize that the steps that the scammer is walking them through appear to be, securing an account, but it's actually letting them into your account. And then they, take all the Bitcoin. But with something like Bitkey, it's just much more obvious that they can't do that. They can't get in the device themselves. And so the only option they have is to sweet talk you into sending your Bitcoin to them. And that's just it's much more difficult to scam somebody into sending Bitcoin somewhere rather than to scam them into getting access to an account, and then the attacker actually sends the Bitcoin themselves. So the best way to keep from getting scammed out of Bitcoin and hacked out of Bitcoin is to use a hardware wallet like the little BitKey device. It's a great way to do that. The other ways are, don't let anybody sweet talk over text message or phone or email you into giving up your passwords or your two-factor authentication code. Just don't let them do that. It doesn't matter if they claim they're from technical support. Doesn't matter if they claim there was fraudulent charges. It doesn't even matter if they call you from a caller ID number that says Bank of America. Don't assume they're from Bank of America. Hang up and call back the actual Bank of America phone number on the back of your debit card. Well, that number, you can spoof inbound phone calls. So a hacker or a scammer can spoof the caller ID inbound to make it look like it's coming from Coinbase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America. But if you actually call the number on the back of the debit card or on the official, Bank of America website, that number does go to the right place. So they can make it look fake on the way in, but nobody can fake it on the way out. So when you're talking to a financial institution, you always want that phone call to be one that you initiated from your phone to a phone number that was legit on their website or their mobile app, because that way it's not being spoofed by an inbound phone call. Okay, so we've covered the bad things that could happen to you, which are you didn't buy enough Bitcoin or you never bought it in the first place, you sold it, which is number 2. You traded it or you bought meme coins instead of actually just sitting on it and holding it, which is number 3. You got scammed out of it, which is number 4. You got hacked out of it, which is number 5. And the next thing, give me a second. And the next thing, which is way, 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 way less likely, so unbelievably less likely that I'm reluctant to even bring it up because people freak out. And it's like everybody's afraid of a shark attack when the truth is you're way more likely for your car to hit a deer and you get killed that way. But anyway, I'll cover it for the sake of completeness, which is now and then people ask me, what happens if somebody holds me up at gunpoint in the gas station parking lot or, the Walmart parking lot? I'm held up at gunpoint. Okay. So first of all, the likelihood that that's going to happen is almost zero. You should not be running around blabbing on social media about how much Bitcoin you have. I've never said how much Bitcoin I have. I do talk about percentages, but I feel like, I've taken a lot of precautions. And I feel like if I don't talk about percentages, then everybody will assume I'm, claim to be all into Bitcoin, and I practically have none. So I feel like I need to refute that. So I've taken a lot of precautions. But the short take is the probability that somebody will physically try to attack you to take your Bitcoin is so close to zero, it's something you just really don't have to worry about at all. You're way more likely for somebody to snatch your purse or steal your wallet or pickpocket you or to hold you up at gunpoint to take your wallet with fiat currency in it. That is way more likely than that somebody's going to try to get your Bitcoin at gunpoint. But let's talk about it anyway, because now and then people ask me and, all of that. So first of all, it's extremely unlikely. Second, once again, it's the reason I like things like the little BitKey hardware device, which I don't have it with me, obviously, but because that's not the purpose of this video. But I've done other videos that show you what it looks like. So the number one thing you can do to avoid losing your Bitcoin in that situation is plain old common sense. Just act like act like your Bitcoin on a little hardware device or on your phone is like a little bag of diamonds. So the question is, well, what would you do if you had a big chunk of your net worth in a little bag of diamonds? Well, the first thing you would do is you probably would not carry it around in your pocket everywhere, which is why I don't carry around my Bitcoin in my pocket everywhere. So yes, I have a Coinbase account, and yes, it does have a balance because I use the Coinbase debit card, but a very small percentage of my Bitcoin is on Coinbase. It's just what I need there to make sure that the debit card always goes through. Most of my Bitcoin is in cold storage. Cold storage meaning, things like the BitKey device. Okay, and so that means if somebody holds me up in the Walmart parking lot or at a gas station and says, give me all your Bitcoin, the answer is, I can't give you all my Bitcoin. I have no physical way of doing that. Again, similar to if you had a little bag of diamonds, you would not carry them around in your pocket because you'd be afraid of theft. You would not leave them in your car because you'd be afraid of theft. You would not be in a position where somebody could take them all from you at a moment's notice. And so that's, again, the reason I like the little BitKey device is because you can keep it wherever you keep your valuables, right? So if you keep your valuables, if you have a lot of family jewelry that's, super rare and expensive, it's probably not in your car and it's probably not in your pockets. It's probably wherever you keep your valuables, which is where you can keep the little Bitcoin hardware device. Keep it wherever you keep your valuables. And what that means is if somebody tries to take it from you, well, it's not going to be with you. It's not going to be with you in the parking lot of Walmart. It's not going to be with you at the gas station. And the vast majority of people, robbers and burglars and muggers, they want to do whatever they're going to do, like right there. They do not want to go follow you around to somewhere else, because as soon as they are following you around, they are kidnapping, and nobody wants to do that. Not nobody, but like every bad guy knows that when you move from, hey, this is a stick up, give me your wallet, to, hey, we're going to have to go together somewhere with you under duress, that the penalties go from, 5 years in prison to like life. Like they really don't want to do that. So, so the easiest thing you can do is just make your Bitcoin hard to get with a little bit of common sense, which is don't carry all of your Bitcoin all on your phone in your Coinbase account where you could, send it to an attacker in less than 30 seconds. Just make it a little more difficult. Put it on a BitKey device, leave the BitKey device at home. Now you have to physically be at home in order to move Bitcoin, which is a very minor inconvenience for you, but a massive inconvenience to somebody who wants to part you from your Bitcoin. So a little bit of common sense there. So one second. So let's take it up a notch. What if you have a ton of Bitcoin, like a lot of Bitcoin? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to borrow, and again, what I'm going to talk through next makes no sense for most people, but I'm going to walk through just because I know, a lot of high net worth people that have substantial amounts of Bitcoin, and I'll just walk through some of the things they do. So, and so this is all stuff I've heard on like the What Bitcoin Did podcast or Natalie Brunell. I mean, it's all stuff I've just picked up, but a lot of people, first of all, the number one thing any Bitcoiner would tell you is, just don't keep all your Bitcoin where you can transfer all of it to somebody on your phone at a moment's notice. Because if you can do that, it means under duress, someone can make you do that, and they can make you do that right there. And there's just no reason to make that easy for them. So number one thing is to put the Bitcoin on a hardware device. Again, I recommend BitKey. Put it on BitKey and keep that BitKey device somewhere other than where you are. Now, the easiest thing for most people is just leave it at home, and the probability that, something bad's going to happen at your house is a lot lower, unless you live in a sort of high crime area like a lot of the city of Jackson or something like that. But, if you live in a relatively safe place, that's probably good enough. But if you have a lot of Bitcoin, then I would take it another level. So some things you could do, or something I've talked to people that have done, is a lot of people keep it in like a bank safe deposit box, which means, one, you have to move your Bitcoin if you have to move it for some reason during business hours, which means an attacker can't get your Bitcoin outside of business hours because you can't even get access to your safe deposit box. Also, I promise you, no attacker wants to walk with you into a bank with security cameras, and typically someone in that bank is armed and there's security, and there's a million opportunities for you to tell someone you're under duress. Like, there is no way an attacker wants to follow you into a bank to move Bitcoin in a safe deposit box. They just don't want to do that. So the next thing, if you want to be a little more secure than, at home, is like a safe deposit box. Some people, they don't want to be constrained by banking hours. And so, some people, if you've got a friend who's super into the Second Amendment and would love nothing more than to take down a bad guy with all of their guns, then great. Ask them if they can keep the device in the gun safe, and tell them, hey, look, if I come and move my Bitcoin, if anybody is ever with me, you should be super suspicious. I'm not saying like take them out. I'm saying I'm not going to come over here to move my Bitcoin, unless I'm alone. And if I'm not alone, ask me why I'm not alone. You need to be sort of questioning the situation. So no bad guy wants to go to a bank, to a safe deposit box, which is why like 0 people get held up at a gas station or at a Walmart parking lot, and then have the person drive with them to a bank to unlock a safe deposit box. Like, that virtually never happens, because it doesn't matter if your safe deposit box is full of diamonds. No attacker wants to go into a bank with you to get a safe deposit box to get your diamonds, your family jewels, whatever, They just don't want to do that. There's armed security, there's cameras everywhere. Like, they just do not want to do that. So again, easiest thing is probably, somewhere wherever you keep your valuables at home. If you want to take your security up a notch, safe deposit box at a bank, or if you got a friend that's super into guns, the Second Amendment, bank safes, and would just love to take down a bad guy, that's always a good option. Some people keep their BitKey devices in an office environment where they know a lot of people, where it would be really weird, really awkward for somebody to walk in there with them, and it would be sort of very suspect, and typically security cameras. If you have access to a place you can store valuables that requires people to go through a metal detector, that's great, right? Because, you can't go get it, under duress. Nobody can get through that metal detector if they're with you, and which means they're going to get disarmed, and which means they're not going to be able to do anything with you under duress. So all of those things are great strategies. I'm obviously, for security reasons, not going to go into all the different setups I have personally, other than my goal has been to make it a nightmare, right? So if somebody wants my Bitcoin, I've spent a lot of time thinking through what are all the nightmare scenarios, not for me, but what are the nightmare scenarios for them? Like, if somebody wants to physically attack me and take my Bitcoin, what is a nightmare scenario for them? And I've just spent a lot of time thinking through what would an attacker not want to do? And again, you can just start stacking stuff. They do not want to interact with people with guns. They do not want to interact with metal detectors. They do not want to interact with security cameras. They do not want to interact with dogs. They do not want to interact with public places. They do not want to interact with time locks where you can't get to stuff until a specific amount of time has gone by. They do not want to, I could go on and on and on. And again, in my case, I don't even keep all my Bitcoin in one place. So if somebody wanted to run the world's most insane gauntlet to try to get some of my business, some of my Bitcoin at the light at the end of the tunnel, after an insane gauntlet that I can promise is not worth it for them, they're going to get a little bit of it, because there's a completely different and separate insane gauntlet to get a little bit more of it. And there's a completely separate and insane gauntlet to get a little bit more of that. Like, it's just, again, the goal is to just, eliminate the threat by deterrence, which is to make it so difficult and so painful and so high likelihood that an attacker would be captured or killed in the process that it's just not worth doing. And again, the more sort of common sense barriers you put in someone's way, the less likelihood that something bad's going to happen. But again, the reason I talk about this, it's insanely less likely that this would happen than like literally any other bad thing that might happen to your Bitcoin. So that's why I've never done a dedicated, even when people ask me, because they start getting a lot of Bitcoin, they start getting nervous, like, hey, what if something bad happens to my Bitcoin? I'm like, look, calm down. Almost all of the bad things that could happen to your Bitcoin are like things you did to screw up, like not buy it or sell it or trade it or buy a meme token instead, because you could buy a bunch of them for $1 instead of Bitcoin, which seems expensive on the surface because it's legit and real, or that you get scammed by a sweet-talking, really nice-sounding person. That's way more likely. Or that you get hacked by someone you'll never meet in your life. That's way more likely. So, like, the probability that someone is physically going to attack you and try to get your Bitcoin is like, again, it's equivalent to the probability you're going to die in a shark attack. It's just like almost nobody dies in a shark attack. Even when people get attacked by sharks, they usually live, and everybody's all worried about it. And like the probability that you're going to die like practically any other way is just way higher than that somehow a shark's going to get you. So it's the same way with physical attacks with Bitcoin. They're very few and far between. When they do happen, they tend to be in third world countries. They tend to be in third world countries with Bitcoin promoters, people that are all over YouTube and all over social media talking nonstop about Bitcoin, that they're traveling in third world countries with no security. They're a known commodity. Everybody knows they got a lot of Bitcoin, and they're in some third world country with poor security, and, bad things happen, but it's, again, and typically those people are not Americans, right? It's some Russian traveling in Malaysia who got attacked by, the Russian mob who's just been waiting for this guy to go someplace. Like, it's just stuff that typically does not happen in the United States. One more second. So once again, but it's extremely unlikely, but the common sense stuff you can do. And again, I have some friends that are like, they're like me, into the Second Amendment, right? In my case, I have an enhanced concealed carry weapons permit. Well, not everybody wants to go through the trouble of getting an enhanced concealed carry weapons permit that authorizes them to carry a gun 24/7. Well, I like that sort of thing. So anyway, a lot of people, it makes, a lot more sense just to get a safe deposit box at a bank, put between 70% and 90% of your Bitcoin on a little BitKey device, go lock it in the bank safe deposit box and forget about it. Like, that's a great option for a ton of people. Or again, if you have a safe at your office, or if you have a safe at just some place that it's just highly unlikely that an attacker is going to want to follow you to get to, or that they're going to, show up at when you're there and you have the ability to send Bitcoin to them. But again, I also have friends who are just like me, super into I've had people tell me, I had one person, this has come from, I guess, a couple different people. Now I was listening to a podcast and a person was saying, look, they have everything secured at their house, but they're like, look, they got so many guns at their house that it's literally impossible that an attacker could force them to transfer Bitcoin without them being able to retrieve one of their numerous guns that's hidden behind like every nook and cranny of their house. So it's like, look, that's some people's cup of tea. Some people's cup of tea is to have 27 firearms hidden in their house. And it's like, normally I would say, well, there's somewhere more secure to keep your Bitcoin device like a BitKey than your house. But yeah, if you got 27 guns in your house and you got an enhanced concealed carry weapons permit, and there's like 100% chance that you will be able to get one of those guns in the process of trying to transfer your Bitcoin, there's just 100% chance you're going to end up with your hand on a gun and bullets flying out of the front of it. Well, great. That's a great option. But I don't expect most people to be fanatical about that sort of thing, or to have so many sort of fail-safes built in. Again, that a lot of people, a better option is safe deposit box, or a friend who's got a safe, or just something that's not where you typically are, that requires enough effort that no attackers want to go through that process. So anyway, so let me recap for us. The recap is, by far the most likely things bad that could happen to you or your Bitcoin are: 1, that you didn't buy it in the first place; 2, that you sold it; 3, that you traded it because you were trying to trade in and out of Bitcoin, or trade in and out of, meme coins like Shiba Inu or Dogecoin or whatever. Number 4, that you got scammed out of it by somebody who sweet talked you, pretending to be tech support, or pretending to be the fraud detection department at Coinbase or at Bank of America or whatever it is. Number 5, that it got hacked because you had poor security and you were reusing passwords, and somebody texted you and said, hey, what's the 2-factor authentication code you just got? I need it to secure your account. And you copied and pasted it over to them, which you shouldn't have done. That sort of thing. So, if there's, if the probability of the first item is, I don't know, but let me put probabilities on this. The probability that if something bad happens to you, that the reason is you didn't buy enough Bitcoin, I would say out of a 100-point probability, let's call it 50% of it. That you sold it, that's another 25% of it. That you traded it away, that's another 10% of it. What are we down to? 50, 25, 75, 85, I think maybe we're at. That you got scammed out of it, that's another, call it 8% of it. So we're up to like 93%. That, or let's say scammed and hacked gets you to, 99.9%. And if somebody came to me and said, none of those things happened, what is the probability that the worst of the worst happened, is that you got physically attacked? I would be like, a 100th of 1%, a 1,000th of 1%, a 1,000,000th of 1%. Like, we're talking like a handful of people out of 300 million a year. Like, it's just, that is not the thing to worry about. But I bring it up here for the sake of completeness, just so that this video covers sort of the full gamut. And because people have asked me now and then, and I didn't want to do a dedicated video on it because I feel like that's excessive. But again, you're just way more likely to get hacked or scammed, and you're way, way, way more likely than being hacked or scammed to not buy Bitcoin, or to sell it, or to trade yourself out of it, to basically cheat yourself out of your own Bitcoin. The probability that you're going to lose your Bitcoin, under duress at the point of a gun is like infinitesimally small. Literally, almost certainly, your probability that you will be attacked and killed by a shark, in a swimming pool, maybe not a swimming pool, but possibly a swimming pool, that probability is probably higher than that you have to worry about that for your Bitcoin. But even so, it still makes sense to use common sense things like the little BitKey device, which makes it harder for a scammer or a hacker to get to it. And it keeps, anybody from being able to freeze your assets, which is great as well. And again, as long as you keep that BitKey device not on your person or in your car, then, you're not going to get held up at gunpoint at Walmart or, I don't know, the gas station parking lot and be like, somebody says, give me all your Bitcoin. It's like, oh, crud, I actually can because my device is in my pocket. It's like, just don't keep your device in your pocket and don't keep all of your Bitcoin, somewhere that you could easily transfer it to somebody. So, and then the last thing I'll say here is, again, the best thing to do about it, the mantra in Bitcoin world is talk about Bitcoin all the time. Talk about your Bitcoin none at all. So the best thing is to always be talking about Bitcoin, but never talking about your Bitcoin, because that leaves people wondering, like, is this a fascination that you own $50 of? Or do you have like half of your net worth in this? Again, I violate that principle myself for a bunch of reasons. One, I have an enhanced concealed carry weapons permit. I've taken a ton of precautions. I've built insane gauntlets that make it, extraordinarily difficult for somebody to, get my Bitcoin, all that. So I've taken a bunch of precautions that a bunch of people don't do, on a bunch of different levels. And second, I feel like, I'm out there trying to educate people on Bitcoin, and I want to be forthright about at least percentages, even though I never talk about absolute numbers, with regard to Bitcoin. I do talk about percentages of my liquid net worth and things like that. And I feel like that's important because I don't want to be out there promoting Bitcoin and people wondering, like, hey, he's constantly talking about Bitcoin. Is this like 1% of his assets? And the answer is no. It's of liquid assets, it's 96%. So 96%. I'm not going to say how much Bitcoin that is, but it's 96% of my liquid assets. But again, I'm comfortable talking about that for a bunch of reasons, including, I have an enhanced concealed carry weapons permit. I have a dog. I have lots of friends that are looking out for me. I have massive gauntlets I've built that would make it very, very, very difficult for somebody to get to my Bitcoin, even if they could get to me. So anyway, all that to say, hope this video helps. Keep the main thing, which is secure your Bitcoin from yourself and from sort of dumb mistakes. That's way more important, but for the sake of completeness, I figured I'd cover a little bit of everything. So if I missed anything, message me 601-207-0813. That number again, 601-207-0813. If I missed anything, happy to do a follow-up video, or happy to answer any questions, or that sort of stuff. And anyway, so here you go, longer video than usual. Hopefully it helps. And again, keep the main thing, which is buy Bitcoin and don't sell it. If you do that, the two most likely things, bad things that could happen to you, won't happen to you. By far, those are the two most likely bad things that could possibly happen to you. Way more than that you get scammed, way more than that you get hacked or traded away. And even those are infinitely more likely than that, you lose it under duress. Just buy as much Bitcoin as you can and sit on it as long as possible. If you do that, you're way ahead of the game, and 75 to 95% of all the bad things that could happen won't happen if you just buy Bitcoin and sit on it and use a little common sense on, not falling for scams or hacks. So anyway, y'all have a wonderful Sunday. Hopefully it helps, and glad you stuck with an unusually long video. Have a great day. Thanks.